Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Enterprise AI News. I'm your host, Troy Angerdon, and I'm here with my co-host, Ian Wilson.
Everybody, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ian. I understand today we are going to be talking about AI business education courses. What have you got for us?
Yeah, so a subject close to my heart. For those, we're going to get to the end and have a shameless plug for the education I'm doing, just so you're
Which I
aware.
highly recommend.
Great, well done. So in the spirit of a previous video we did where I showed a vendor's research and Troy mercilessly pilloried that research. I'm going to show you vendor research that I've done on a subject that's going to show you all the bad things about others' courses and all the things I do well. No, it's not.
Excellent. Well, I'm
It
going to
is
have to
fun.
use pilloried in another call today because it's such a good
You
word.
are. That's word of the day.
Yeah.
So this is less a news article and more actually from myself. So I've been doing research on courses in particular for business AI, because around the web there are thousands upon thousands of courses to teach you about technical AI, about
Yeah.
machine learning, what it is, all the technology, all the theory underpinning that. You want to go and do that, just get on YouTube, Udemy, all those places, you're covered. But if you want to know about how to use AI in a business context, from an executive or leadership context, there's very, very little. But actually, there's more than you might expect. And I certainly found this when I was doing my research. And what I'd found is typically when I looked for, if I was looking at business AI courses, the same kind of 3, 4, 5 would pop up all the time. And I would expect, that's kind of the extent of it. But what I found is 60 plus courses around the world that actually focus on AI from a business perspective. And just to give you a few facts and figures that might be useful for someone in the audience to understand, because lots of people, I think particularly from our audience, are not technologists per se. They're not developers. They're not looking to build AI software. They're looking to deploy it within an enterprise. And that's going to be your head of a department, your directors, your executives. So how do you go about doing that? And these were the courses I took a look at. So those are really the goals. It's to help executives. And principally, most of these are online, but there's a mix of online and offline. And what I found through looking at these around 60 courses, they're generally split into two categories: commercially delivered or university delivered. And the split there is about 1/3 commercial to 2/3 university. And that's interesting because when you look at taking these courses, while I would like to bias you and tell you what you should be looking for, actually what you really should be looking for is what matters to you. And that tends to be different for different people. A lot of people are just looking for a badge on their resume, something high profile, in which case, the best educational institution is going to give you that nice badge. But others are looking for, no, I actually want to do this. I want to get real education. Some might be saying, I want to be taught what these things are, whereas lots of these other courses are a lot about you write your own project or you chat within a group. So very much the focus is, well, what are you trying to achieve when you do this education? So that split between commercial and university is interesting. Where these are is also interesting and entirely unsurprising. Around a third are in the UK, around a third are in the US, and another third are elsewhere. So 1/6 are in the EU, 1/6 are in countries outside of the EU. Some in India, some in various other countries, which I think would surprise nobody, that split. But again, most of these are online, perhaps with some campus as well, but wherever they're actually located doesn't tend to matter too much. But one of the key points, obviously, is the cost. How much do these actually cost? And looking at a general split, I break these up into sixth, which is essentially about 10 courses, just because that's the way it fell out. I had around 1/6 of these courses were less than $1,000. Around a sixth were between $1,000 and $2,000. 2/6 were, or about a third, were between 2,000 and 5,000. So that kind of price range, between $1,000 and $5,000, is very much the sweet spot. But there were a number, around a sixth, that were between $5,000 and $10,000, and a sixth that were between $10,000 and $25,000. And so that's a pretty broad range. So let me jump in to show you some of the courses.
Sure.
Because it's better to take a look and see, well, how can they vary so much?
I looked at a bunch of these a long time ago, and I did have a similar sort of list of 60, but I don't remember the span being so big. I don't remember it going up to the sort of $25,000 mark. So I'd love to see what you've pulled together here.
Yeah. One critical element that I haven't found yet, and is going to take a lot more deeper research, because for some reason, courses don't want to tell you this on their online pages, which for me is critical, which is how much of this is education versus how much of this is you doing your own work. Lots of these talk about self-study, working in groups, doing your own projects. So when they talk about how long, we'll look at this as well, which is the figure I've got, how long they actually take. What I would really like to know is, well, how much of that is you teaching me stuff versus how much of it is me just sat reading a book, which I can do anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't have that to hand. So if you're thinking about, well, tell me that. I don't have that to hand at the moment, but I am working on that research. So the first one up then is Wharton. So for anybody who doesn't know, Wharton is one of the top business schools. Sorry, I just went back. And they've got a course, Artificial Intelligence for Business, which of course fits really nicely into what we're doing. And I'm going to progress along the cost dimension. So this one is, if I can just get to the details, 4 to 6 weeks. So let's say it's 4 weeks, 2 hours per week, 100% online. So I'm assuming that 2 hours probably equates to maybe 1 hour, 90 to 90 minutes of online teaching, $600. So I'm guessing this is probably somewhere in the region of 6 hours of teaching, $600. So this is on the cheap end, and this is Wharton, which is a great badge if you want to get one. Now, if I can just look at what it comprises of is 4 modules, and this is entirely unsurprising. And one of the things we'll see as we go through is, AI for business introduction, AI and data. That's all well and good. These are probably in 2-hour blocks. What we'll also see, and something I split up in my research, is what is the split between teaching you about business and teaching you about things like machine learning. So here we've got one of the whole modules is about machine learning. So that's going to be on the technology side, which may or may not be useful. But then we've got a whole bunch of other things that are quite useful. So that's an example of reasonably cheap with a good badge, but it's going to be very kind of short and sharp. But perhaps quite, that might be exactly what you're looking for. Moving up the scale, again, I'm going to stick primarily with big names. This is London Business School. Again, one of the world's top ranked business schools. The business of AI, illuminate the real business of AI, somewhat similar to the Wharton one, but a bit longer, 10 weeks, 3 to 5 hours a week. And it says, no, this program includes 5 weeks of online learning, followed by a 30-day AI implementation plan, which means something you're doing yourself. So bear that in mind. You're paying for 5 weeks where you do your own work. I'm sure they've got some help as well. But it says 3 to 5 hours a week. So let's say 3 hours a week, 5 weeks of learning. So maybe this has 10 to 15 hours of online lectures, perhaps. And that one is £1,700, so probably now about $2,500. And now we've moved up the scale. So we've taken a big jump from $599. And again, that price range is pretty rare. Getting bits sub $1,000 is rare. And they tend to be at that range very, very short, just almost like an introduction that you're paying for. So while they seem cheap, they may not be the best value. The Wharton one does look good, however. So that's taking a step up, basically just expanding on the amount you're actually going to be taught within that. But again, this is the key part. It says 10 weeks, but 5 weeks of it is you doing your own project, which again, nothing wrong with that, but bear that in mind. So moving up the stack, and I bring this one in particularly, MIT's executive leadership program called AI Leadership. We've jumped up now to $3,200. I know this used to be $2,500, so it's jumped up. I rolled this one in because I actually sent my team at HSBC on this one while we were building out our center of expertise, and they all really appreciated it and liked the course. It's over 6 weeks, so it has orientation, but then what I liked about this one, and the reason I sent them, was the actual material was really nice. I liked a lot of the things they're doing: systems thinking, collective intelligence, extended autonomy and control. Not your usual run-of-the-mill stuff.
No, there was a comment there about organizational structure, which is you and I've discussed a lot, and as you cover in your course, is so key.
Yep. Team building simulation, leadership. So my team liked this a lot because of the leadership stuff.
Right.
And again, that is where, so I talked about what's the split between business and technology. There's another split, which is what's the split between general business and AI, because obviously the general business, you can get other places. Now, that doesn't mean it's wrong to roll it in here, but if you have another course that's talking about general business, are they talking about that in the context of AI? Or if they're talking about, project management, are they just taking a module about project management that they've got on their university and it's just very general?
Right.
Or is it very specific to AI? That's a question to ask. So this one, really interesting. Another interesting point to put up. Now, again, the team I sent on really enjoyed this, but when you look at who's actually the instructors, the question you want to ask yourself, and again, talking about biased company research and biasing mine here, is what's their expertise in AI? And most of the instructors for these courses have expertise in business. These have got data systems, management, organizational studies, really hardcore stuff, but not specifically AI. Now, that doesn't, of course, mean they don't know their stuff, because again, I sent a team on this one and they really appreciated it. But what I saw almost across the board is very, very few of these courses will show you somebody who's got expertise in AI. What they tend to do, and I've done this with the course from UC Berkeley, is bring in outside experts to
round it out,
present a course or have a lecture. But that's the extent of it. So that's also another question to think about. So another step up the chart, then we're moving on to Harvard. This is where we're jumping up to the 5K limit level. And not too dissimilar from the MIT program. This program includes live online classes. So live is interesting because obviously that bumps the cost up rather than on non-live. But really, if you're not asking questions, and I do a lot of this education live or via video, most of the time students don't have questions because the things you're presenting to them, if you're an executive and you're learning about AI and AI business, you've never done it before. And so it's very difficult for you to jump into a live lesson with any kind of serious question. You need to kind of digest the material and then think about the questions. So I wouldn't say live is an especially key point for this kind of material. because you're generally not really going to be able to make that much use of it.
Well, let's be clear. It says live online classes.
Live online. So
I think in that sense, I don't know if you had intended that. But live to me sounded live, like on site. I guess in my brain I confused it maybe.
Right. No, actually, so live online, as you say, to be clear, it means online, but the person is there in person doing the speaking. You can ask questions. The key would be, can you ask questions?
Right.
If you can't ask questions, being live is completely pointless.
Right. Yeah. I would hope and assume that live means, yes, it's interactive and therefore it's just not pre-recorded.
So that's the key. So I would check that. If you're looking for live, make sure it does mean interactive. Otherwise, you just play a video. It's the same thing.
Right. Right.
But as you mentioned, we'll look at some more later that are in person. When I say in person, I mean you're actually in a physical space together, which
just like the old days.
Just like the old days. I kind of missed that.
Pre-metaverse days.
So this is Harvard's. It's a bit more. It's a bit longer. Their curriculum shows, again, they've got a really great mix of topics, the age of AI, network effects, which are important with AI, the AI factory, I like that idea. The AI first company, I like that.
That's a great idea.
Ethics of AI and data, of course, they have to have that in driving organizational transformation.
Which is great.
So, yeah, so I think it's kind of very similar to the MIT's, but but longer, and you're paying a bit more for it, as you should. So that's a nice one too.